Hello, welcome back to Patrox Radio. I'm your host, Patrox, and today I have an interesting interview set up for later. But before we get into that, I just wanted to cover a couple things first. So, as related to the Norfolk Southern derailment, I am starting to notice that more news sites and agencies are taking notice of the other incidences that will happen. If you know anything about the charts or statistics that cover most of that data, you will find out that there's about 3 accidents a day. So now that people are becoming a little more aware of train derailments, I'm glad to see the conversation of how they operate coming into the spotlight a bit more. Though I really, really hope that this picks up. I also wanted to cover something related to Fox News, which I never thought I would. And the reason I want to cover more specifically some of the after effects of the recent court case and the subsequent release of the Fox News hosts text messages to each other and other people, exposing what they really think about people, their viewers. I wanted to discuss some viewpoints that I saw with people talking about how we should treat those coming into questioning their former views. More specifically, I really liked this take that I saw someone on, I believe it was called Midas Touch, a more progressive channel that I think originates in Australia. Has a guy on there who was talking about how we need to approach these people, both smart, but be kind, which I thought was perfect because even I myself want to have the visceral natural reaction to lash out at these people who are questioning and just say, haha, we told you so, and just bombard them with facts. But, even if you want to go with what is the technical route of what experts say, even experts say don't do that. Experts say be kind. Remind them of a better time before they were involved in all this. They say be patient and just give them the space to, question things. And I think that that's perfect. I think, as much as it is a personal reaction to want to just lash out at people like this, because I have personal friends and family members that were down this pipeline for a long time, this is better not only in its final results based on the experts, but it's better in accordance with the things I like to think I preach. Mainly being compassionate and, really sticking to what the information, the truth. So, if you have any loved ones, if you have any family members, I really highly suggest that if these are individuals that have fallen down the QAnon or Trumper pipeline for a long time and they're just now starting to question things, be patient, be kind, and don't really talk about it, in the sense of what they were right or wrong about. Just really focus on the better times that you guys shared, some better memories that you guys may have, had in the past, better ambitions and hobbies that can keep them devoted into something else that will be healthier for them. These are not bad things. These are exactly what they need. They need to be normalized back into society and into their own family unit or in their social circle. So I thought that was just a really good take. I highly suggest just actually look up the facts themselves if there's anything else specific that would help you or something I should elaborate on that I don't know of right now. So I would highly encourage you guys to do that. With that being said, I would like to introduce you guys to the interview that I had with a wonderful individual named Nikki. Now, Nikki has quite an amazing job, and I hope she becomes a friend of the show. But without further ado, we're going to get into the interview. Here we go. Hi,
Hello,
welcome back.
hello, good to see you again.
Likewise, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, how are you?
Fantastic. I already got the audio recording, so we can start whenever.
Mine as well, great.
Yeah, so Nikki, introduce yourself for everyone.
Yes, hi, I'm Nikki. I'm an end-of-life doula and a grief coach. I'm based in Columbus, Ohio.
Fantastic. So for people who don't know, what is a doula?
So, an end of life doula, I provide emotional and spiritual support to the dying and to their loved ones, is the quickest, simplest way I can put it.
Okay.
Much like a birth doula helps usher life into the world, I go to the other
Fair
end
enough.
and I help usher them out of the world. So,
So yeah, you're just like an extra hand facilitating this
yes.
part of life.
Yes.
Okay.
Death is a often complex and confusing thing, especially if you've never experienced it before, like with nobody in your family. So there's a lot of little things to navigate, and just having a impartial third party to kind of be around to help navigate a lot of that can be super helpful.
Oh yeah, yeah. As we've dealt with a little bit of death in my family, like a lot of people have, and as the way my father described it is that sometimes you need somebody who can just be that anchor,
Yeah.
even if it's like whether emotionally or physically, because
Yep.
you can't handle it all.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. In late 2020, like the Sunday before Thanksgiving, we lost my grandma, my Mimi.
Oh, I'm so
she had-
sorry.
It's all good. We kind of knew. She knew too, so it wasn't like a surprise, but it still hurt.
Yeah, it doesn't
So
make
luckily,
it easier.
of course, but we were at least emotionally prepared when it happened.
Yeah.
But I know because I have a blended family, I have family members who hadn't experienced that before, and they were taking it very differently.
Yeah.
And so, just learning how to share our experience, I personally felt was a lot of what helped us navigate that end of time. But I mean, we still hold her close. We still, my family likes to do, even though I'm not a Christian, they like to have a birthday cake for Jesus on Christmas. But
Okay.
we also started doing another one for our Mimi
Oh,
since
that's
then.
beautiful. I
Yeah,
love that.
so we still try to cherish her and everything.
Oh, that's good. It's good to do things like that to remember the people we've lost. I'm
Yeah.
behind that 110%.
Absolutely, as they say, people grieve in different ways. I thought I would have been more of the stoic type, but no, I was with my dad, bawling my eyes out the whole time.
Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, everybody
know.
grieves differently for sure.
Right. So I'm kind of curious, what even got you to this line of work? Was it something that you just personally felt passionate about, or was it something that you just felt like, hey, I'm just good at this, it seems?
A little of both. I've always been very passionate about working with the dying, and I've known people in my life and heard stories of other people who, died with no one, or
Okay.
died alone, or had, a tragic or unexpected death, or just had complications at the end of their life. And that type of stuff just bothers me. And I've always felt passionate about this, but it's one of those things like, yeah, but I don't know if I'll actually do it. And then
Right.
COVID happened, and like everybody in the United States, I spent a lot of time really thinking about what matters.
Oh yeah, yeah. It shook everyone up.
So, and that's when I sat back and said, I hate corporate America. I don't like what I do. I don't like the company I work for, and I can't do this anymore. So I spent a lot of time a little soul searching, like, what am I really passionate about and what can I do with that? So I talked to a couple people. I found some training online to do end of life work, and here I am.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's funny because in your profession, it seems like 2020 was a real catalyst to kind of push you that way. And I've heard similar stories for everyone, kind of not a unique phenomenon at this point, when you discuss it. Something similar happened to me in what led me to do what I do now, where I try to have a more analytical but personal approach into researching our impact both in society and on the planet. Even if you are somebody who is like the hyper individualist, you still have an infinite amount of cause and effect in your surroundings.
Absolutely.
So how does that play out?
Yeah.
Same thing with corporations. How does that play out? And that's what's led me to doing a lot of research. I'm so glad I found a lot of online tools that have been helping me out.
Good.
And just trying to spread that as much as possible.
Good.
But another thing that I personally care about is discussing how we deal with the many parts of our life. This could be anything from puberty to having a new kid to, in this case, dealing with death,
Yeah.
whether it's our own or somebody close to us. And, if you expand the conversation, how does your, literally dead body affect the world? Well, that's what we have you for, because I
Yeah.
don't actually know how that would work. I've learned only very bits of things about composting, and
Yep.
that teaches me about how some organic material breaks down. But from most people online, they usually say don't put anything animal in there, but they don't explain like what would happen if you did and how that
Yeah.
would break down or anything.
Yeah.
So I'm actually kind of like out of left field, or whatever the saying. I'm so out of it right now.
You're fine.
I'm out of my element as to what this could be. I like to think I'm pretty smart, but I'm feeling pretty stupid when it comes to this.
Yeah.
So enlighten me. How does this process work? What is it that you exactly do in this part of the job, if you will?
So I can at least express options of what's available for once you're gone, what can be done with
Got
your
it.
body. And it's going to vary state to state. Now I work in Ohio, so the laws, are different here than they would be where you are, where other people
very
are.
different than Texas. Because as far as I know, I did a cursory look. Nothing like that here.
Yeah. Well, there's not a lot available here too. But I will say Ohio is one of the first places that had conservation burial grounds, which was very exciting to me because there's different types of green burials. There's just standard green burial, which you can do in a normal cemetery or in a specific cemetery that says they're for green burials. And that's
Okay.
just basically no, embalming, no metal caskets. Everything has to be completely biodegradable. You can do wicker baskets, you can do shrouds, and you're buried a little bit shallower. It's like 3 to 4 feet versus 5 to 6 feet because the nutrients are up higher. So they want your body to do some good.
Right.
So you're up a little higher, but still low enough that there's no smell and animals won't dig you up. But
Okay, good. Because I was just about to ask.
I know that's a lot of people are like, are animals going to dig? No, they're not going to dig that far down because they can't smell that far down. So, but that's like right about the good level for getting nutrients for your body to come up and feed the soil.
Well, I do have a real quick
Yeah.
just a spitball thought. I do wonder how that would vary depending on soil types, because I know how different Ohio would, soil composition would be to somewhere closer to me.
Yeah.
I live in Houston, so we got more swampy bayou kind of sediments underneath. Anything that isn't just piled over with just clay and asphalt.
Yeah. And that's going to vary state to state too. There might be some places where there aren't viable options. I'm thinking like way out in the desert, Utah, things like that. I don't know how viable those burial grounds are out there. I haven't researched, so I don't know for other states or at least desert
There
areas.
may be needs for different practices. I don't know, because kind of a weird thing that comes to mind. But I've also done a lot of religious research, and one thing that kind of comes from the back of my head is that a lot of old Tibetan faiths used to do sky burials.
Sky burials. Oh yeah, I
and
love
so
that.
If we were somewhere in like Utah, maybe that would be something applicable.
Yeah.
I don't exactly know. I don't know the environment very well,
Yeah.
but just spitballing ideas.
Yeah, I think that would be lovely. I'm going to guess that's probably not allowed out there right now.
Probably not. It would probably fall under desecration of a dead body.
Probably,
or something.
probably. But conservation grounds take it a step further, and they actually register that area, so it is hallowed ground. It cannot be developed on ever.
Okay, cool. So
Forever.
like legally recognized,
Yes.
you don't get to do anything else here.
Yes.
Got it.
So, and they also have a little bit stricter policies on what can be buried with you. So,
Okay.
and again,
Fair. That makes sense.
Yeah, for the most part, like they don't, as long as whatever you're buried in is biodegradable and won't leak any chemicals into the ground, then it's all
Okay,
good.
cool.
Yeah.
So like if I personally, I like the idea of doing like the bio seed pods where I
Mm-hmm.
could have a tree grow from my thing. I'm sure that would be a little more okay. But if I wanted something like a dead pet to be buried alongside me,
Mm-hmm.
how would that affect things? Is that okay too?
I believe so.
Okay,
That's
cool.
a good question. I'll have to ask that or like look into that. But
Because I know. Sorry, keep going.
I was just gonna say what I can tell you since you mentioned tree pods. A lot of people ask me about that, and I have to clarify that's not something that exists right now.
Yeah, it is very
Yeah.
conceptual. But
It was.
I
It was
like
a
the premise.
concept that a couple people in Italy came up with, and it just like there were a couple articles. Everybody's like, "Oh, they're doing tree pods now." They're not.
Yeah, everyone just lost
They're
it.
not.
It's a game of telephone, and we forget where it actually started
Yeah,
from.
yeah. I mean, it's a cool concept. I love that, but
Oh, absolutely.
but that's not. And some places it'll depend on the cemetery. Some places might let you plant a tree, but it's going to have to be a tree that's approved by them that will grow properly there and won't
Probably
cause
something that's more
the roots have to go more straight down versus out.
not what's the opposite of invasive, the type of plants that naturally
Like,
grow there.
yeah.
I'm losing the word, but you know what I mean.
I can't think of it either off the top of my head, but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I think we know. It's beneficial to that area.
I can imagine, though, thinking back to my chemistry days back in high school, that things like certain jewelries probably wouldn't be permitted in this natural type burial.
Possibly.
Because I could imagine certain metals start to react and will leach into the ground.
Yeah.
I can see some of it in the back of my head. I don't know what exactly would be a concrete limit of things so that people can have an idea.
Right.
But I guess rule of thumb, as long as it's organic or green, it's good to go.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Fair enough.
And every cemetery is going to have different policies. So if
That's
you,
true.
figure out where you want to go first, check out what's good for them and what's not. So
Never hurts to ask.
Yeah.
Get all that information from somebody who
absolutely.
actually works there.
yeah, some will prefer like no clothing or anything. And obviously clothing has to be biodegradable too. If you want.
Right. You don't want no polyester in there.
Right. But typically if people are doing that, they're just going to be in a shroud with nothing else. So
Yeah.
but yeah.
That's interesting. So, I have no context of what, kind of pushed the legislation through to allow this to happen in Ohio. Do you have any kind of understanding of what happened before the legislation was passed, or or do you not know?
For green burials?
Yes.
Oh, green burials have been here for quite some time. I don't know if there's
I thought this was a recent thing.
No, I don't know if there's
no.
I don't know if there's ever legislation against it. For the most part, there are no states that have laws that say you can't do that.
I mean, fair point. Texas is just very specific in that, like most burial practices anywhere, it's very conservative in how they want things done.
Right.
In the sense that here, unless it's on your family property, you're going to either be cremated like anybody else, or you're going to be buried within, that super thick lead line coffin or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's literally the only options and services that are provided. Nobody's even
Yeah.
exploring anything else because it's not even worth their time because they don't see a profit in it.
Yeah. And that's I just looked up the statistic today for 2023. As of right now, the funeral industry in the United States is worth $19.5 billion.
Oh my goodness.
So there's a lot of reasons why there's legislations on needing a vault and a casket, and which you don't need those things. Those things didn't exist until about 100 years ago.
So here's the other thing too, because I look into a lot of companies and I try to look into their ecological disasters. The issue. Sorry, I'm getting a little burpy.
It's okay.
So researching some of these companies, you said it was a $19.1 billion industry. That is a fraction of some of the companies' just general wealth that I see.
Yeah.
But then I also think about the amount of land that they have potential reaching, and it's almost the same.
Yeah.
And I want to go off on the tangent on economics, but that's not what the point of this episode.
Yeah.
But it lets me just kind of reframe the amount of land is actually affected by just these handful of people.
Yeah.
In this case, the funeral industry. In other cases, it could be the petrochemical industries and stuff like that. I am really questioning more just. Let's say that this was an idea that like everyone just adopted overnight, right? Is there an idea of what this would look like in, say, 100 years? Or even just 20 years? How do people predict that this would affect the land? How would this affect the availability of space? Because, say, if you run out of space in a cemetery, you're going to eventually be running into old skeletons and stuff.
You will. We will. We'll run out of space.
Right.
Which is why... A lot of funeral industries are pushing cremation now, which is also not ecologically friendly at all.
No, it is not.
And interesting, since you mentioned that running out of space, and there are several countries in the eastern part of the world, Japan, Korea, where they have run out of space, and you can get a burial plot, but you only get it for like 50 years.
Oh wow! I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, you sign a lease. You get to lease a. I'm not kidding. You get to lease a burial spot.
I believe you. It's just so ridiculous, and it sounds so dystopian in my head that you still have to pay to lease it in your death.
I know.
Oh my goodness.
So that's more and more people are going towards cremation over there too, because and only like the wealthiest people can afford it.
Right, right. And I get it from a purely, economic standpoint from an individual. You have a dead person and you can't afford, any practical burial or even the processes to get a green burial. Well, cremation is probably going to be the cheapest and most efficient option. And I have friends that have, urns of loved ones, that they keep with them and stuff like that. And it's like the attitude around death is, I think, the bigger challenge when it comes to discussing things like this, because how am I going to try to convince my friend that can't reasonably afford it that he should bury his loved ones more naturally? Yes, it's better for the planet, but he's screwed over. There's not really much of an option he can do.
Right.
I see little bits of these things happening that people on a great, no NSNBC reporter is ever going to talk about this, on such a personal level. We'll never see a 60 Minutes on this. I hope to be wrong, but I don't think
would
it'll
like
happen.
to see that. I think it'd
Exactly.
be great. I feel like more people are seeing this now. They're like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Like more people are definitely asking those questions about like, what else can we do?
Right.
I get worried that people ask, I hate to say stupid question, but that I feel like that kind of answers a lot of where people think, because I don't think that they're stupid for asking the question, because it shows that they're engaging in the topic. It shows that they care enough to expand what they don't know.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times it's either the information is out there and they don't believe it, or the information is out there and they don't have access to it.
Yeah.
And I usually see a lot of people where that falls into, not even just in this conversation, but with other things. When I talk to them about, company malpractice, when I talk to them about, political discussions, when I talk to them about philosophy discussions and stuff like that. It's this kind of same mentality where either when given the information or the questions about what they should do, they kind of get compressed into what they feel is immediately in their control, and they forget the wider implications of things. And so it makes it harder to kind of push for these things. Like, say if I were to go out, in Houston and try to advocate for something like this, I can tell you right now, out of 100 people, 90% of them won't care, 9% of them will antagonize me, and only one of them will probably actually care enough to ask a question, but he'll probably only have like 5 minutes, and he has to go to work.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's just, I don't know how you would engage in this to be more effective in spreading this idea, but I know like people are starting to get there.
Yeah.
Is kind of the summary of what I was getting at.
Yeah. It's going to take time. And there are some areas of our country that will be the last to do things like this. Like Ohio.
Like the South. Ohio too.
We're not doing so great. But more and more. I was very excited. New York, just in December, I think it was December or early January, New York was the next state to legalize human composting.
Oh, so, I didn't know that.
Yeah, more and more states are allowing.
Okay.
The current states, Colorado, Oregon, Vermont, California, and now New York, do composting.
I need to research that.
Yes, and I've already changed my final will to that's my wish, is to be composted. And it depends on the states. Every state's gonna be a little different. As of right now, I think Oregon and Vermont might be the only states that will allow non-residents to come to their facilities, because it's a specific facility that does these.
Wow, that's amazing. And speaking of will, I really need to get mine done at some point. But the way I've always imagined it is like, I like the idea of still donating my body to science. So here's how I would imagine it. Take all the viable organs you can, take the skeleton and make a display, and then compost the rest. Yeah. That's how I've always wanted to do it.
Yeah. And there are so many other options. Like if you want to donate your body to science, I usually recommend, instead of just a broad general donate my body to science, because you don't usually get a say of what happens to your body, pick a university that's close to you or that you care about and ask them. They might specifically, just that university, need cadavers for their medical students or for other research purposes.
In which case, absolutely. I mean, I specifically would want any organ that is viable for donation to be put up for donation. I want my skeleton to be put together specifically for anatomical discussion in science classrooms and stuff. Yeah. And the rest, I don't want anything else done to it except to put it in a blender, compost me, let that be. That specific, yes.
Yeah, yeah. The other good option are body farms. Have you?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm actually very familiar with body
Yeah.
farms.
I know
a long time ago, I used to work for a survival outlet company, and one of the founders actually did search and rescue, in which he was brought onto a body farm and did a lot of training over there. So I got a lot of knowledge off that.
Yeah, yeah.
But for anybody who doesn't know, I feel like you'll be better at explaining what a body farm is.
Yes. So body farm, and the biggest one is in Tennessee, but I believe there are a couple others in the country as well. They
4 or 5-ish that I know
4 or
of.
5, yeah. They basically they leave bodies out in different types of scenarios, like in the shade, in the sun, in high humidity, low humidity, high altitude, low altitude, and just leave them. They put cages over them so animals can't get to them, and they just leave them to decompose naturally. And then everybody goes out, takes copious notes of what the body condition is, what's going on, fungus growth, animal activity, insect activity, and they use that for forensic science. So when a detective or somebody stumbles across a dead body, they have a better idea with all this research from these body farms. All right, this body is in a humid condition with 85% humidity. It's in low altitude, and there are these types of bugs in it. We know that he has to have been dead about 6 weeks.
Right, exactly. Other things that I have known, a little more specific in the details of my boss at the time, whenever they were training for search and rescues, they also did things like they would bury a small part of the body, either partially or like completely under like less than an inch of dirt. They'll also like just douse it with water for like days on end to simulate rain. They also they would put some of it under decaying trees. So if you can guess if like this had been months that the dead body had been there, like give all kinds of different scenarios, because they also wanted to train the dog to detect the difference in the strengths of the sense depending on how long it had been out there. So it provides all kinds of valuable information, not just for any forensic scientist, but any search and rescue trying to find people that have been out there who are either dying or already dead, just for resolution, of course, for the family. But any variety of scenarios you can imagine.
No, it's incredible. One of my really good friends a long time ago, when I helped her, or I notarized her will for her, and she put that in her will. She wants to be donated to a body farm, and I'm like, good for you, girl.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm very excited for her. I'm not excited for her to die, but I'm excited that she made that choice.
I'm glad you are getting better use out of your body.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm trying to think if I could ever try to talk to anybody in my family to do this, and I know it's a resounding no.
Yeah.
They would never do it. They would be scared.
I just can't fathom sitting sealed up in a box, preserved forever. Like, why?
I grew up with a very strong mental connection to nature, so I always felt like the idea of disconnecting myself like that permanently was never, ideal.
Yeah. Well, and spoiler alert, you don't stay preserved forever, and if you don't, if your body can't react to the soil around it, it's just going to liquefy inside this coffin and it get really. It's not. I mean, I won't go into the gory details because I don't know I don't know what your podcast is rated here, but
no, it's fine. It's open for any discussion.
It's disgusting what happens to a human. And if you're ever, I'll just get gross for half a second, then I'll let it go.
Good. Go ahead.
If you're ever in a cemetery and they have the mausoleum or like the walls with like the marble things that they slide the caskets in, if you ever see stuff dripping out of it, that's not rust. It's not rust from I'm not kidding. Sometimes they don't seal those well, guys. So you might be stepping on grandma.
You say that because I have a very old primal memory of just such a thing.
Yeah.
My family, my dad was in the military whenever I was younger, so we traveled a lot. My mom was also in the military, so she traveled a lot after the divorce and whatnot. So I got around a lot. And I remember one time in Alabama, we were stopping for gas. I cannot tell you where. I don't remember. But I know across, down the ways, there was an old cemetery and everything. So we go. My family's weird, so we went and looked just for a moment.
I love cemeteries.
Because
I will always stop.
Specifically, there was a lot of beautiful mausoleums. Like, you could tell this was a really old cemetery. And it was a really small town, so I can only imagine, like, this is a bunch of old family stuff. But it was open, so we went and looked. And I didn't go into the mausoleum, but it was open enough that you could see it, and there's just long. It looked like super dark red kind of goop just sliding all the way
Yep.
down. I thought it had just been rusty rainwater the whole time, and that's what I lived off of until you told me it
Nope.
wasn't. Oh.
And bodies can explode.
Yes, they can.
They can. They can explode. They usually do, in fact. And if there's not a good enough seal, it can explode the end off of it.
Isn't it because like the bacteria in your gut tends to
Yep.
just overpopulate?
Yeah,
and
it's like
explode
when
that
you
way?
see roadkill on the side of the road and it's all bloated. It's just the bacteria
Yeah.
puffs. It forms gas.
I was gonna go with whales.
Yeah, and whales
Yeah.
too. Yum.
Delicious.
I'm about to eat dinner. I'm so glad we're talking about it.
This is perfect timing. I was gonna make dinner after this too.
This stuff doesn't bother me at all. It really
No,
doesn't.
I grew up being a morbid little child. I mean, I watched Seven at the age of 9, so I'm good.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, no, I was even told not to. My mom hid it from me, and I still found it. It doesn't matter. I was a creepy little fucked up child. But yeah, just I'm really glad that I got you on here because I still have 1,001 questions I want to
Fire away.
discuss. But well, I was gonna say there's probably some of it will be better for like another part if you were interested.
Sure.
One thing I really wanted to ask, more so just on your opinion personally.
Okay.
What would be the best way to kind of approach these conversations? You know, whether it's with a loved one or just a person, like a loved one who's getting close to that point, you know, and it's time for them to start thinking about it, or just with your casual friends,
Yeah.
just so they can start thinking about things.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like I am far too much of an asshole in my personal life to really have that kind of meaningful conversation.
Right.
You know, but I care, so
Good.
fire
Well,
away.
I would say my biggest piece of advice for having these conversations is meet people where they are. Like you said,
Okay.
you weren't sure you'd discuss this with your family because there's no way they would pick any other option.
Yeah, no,
right?
they're very very dedicated Christians, and so they believe in having their whole body remain intact.
Right, and you know that about them. So I would always say just be respectful. If that's what they want, that's what they want. And
Fair
if
enough.
you're probably not going to change their mind. But, find a time when everybody's in a good mood. And maybe not Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, probably not.
You can even... that's something doulas can do is we can facilitate those conversations. Because sometimes
perfect.
having a
Yeah,
third
that's
party
right.
there, an impartial third party there to just kind of like, hey, here's some options, here's some ideas, what are we feeling? And then they can also kind of help mediate the conversation if things start to get too heated. But,
Perfect.
just be respectful of what people believe. Don't challenge that. Don't tell them they're wrong, or that obviously. But
Right.
find like I said, find a time when everybody's in a good mood, and just gently bring up. Be like, hey, here's what I've been thinking. I've been doing some research. I'd really like to do this with myself when I go, and I'm gonna go ahead and put my paperwork together. And I just want my family to know what my wishes are. It'll be in writing. What about you? Do you have anything specific you want to make sure I take care of if you pass before me, which if it's your parents,
Right.
one would assume that's not always the case. But, if you pass before me, I want to make sure I honor your wishes. What would you like done? And, it's, if people don't know, I've met people before like, I don't know, I don't care. It's like, well, let's talk about it. Here's some options. Here's what's available in your state. Here's some things that I know about. Here's some pros and cons of everything, and obviously religious beliefs are going to play a lot into it as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's been my experience.
I've had a lot of people in my life that are Jewish, so it's like 24 hours you're in the ground. That's it. No,
I believe
no ifs,
it.
ands, or
Yeah.
buts. They're very strict about that. Muslims too. So that, and a lot of times, if their religion is strong and they really hold their beliefs strongly, then that's to be respected. And it's like, all right, great. Well, let's make sure we get it in writing.
Well, yeah, of course. Bottom line, you do want to respect the integrity of the person's, intentions for themselves.
Yeah.
As much as you feel like, because for me, I know I'm somebody that could be very driven emotionally. So if I feel very strongly about something, especially if you're antagonizing me on my point, like I can do with my father a lot, it would lead to the impression of, well, fuck you, I'm going to do this anyway, and you can't tell me because you're dead. That is, in my opinion, one of the biggest no-nos. Even if you are let's say, mechanically right. Yes, you are right. This is a better impact on the planet.
Yeah.
I feel like you have destroyed a lot of the trust you have built in. If it's in family, you have destroyed a lot of that trust in your family. So you definitely don't want to do that because, let's say, if it was your dad that died first, well, does your mom trust you to help her now? Absolutely not. And if you don't have another sibling or something, it's like, well, then what? She's going to talk to somebody that she doesn't know or trust to engage with this very important question.
Yeah.
And you're going to be left feeling completely abandoned at your mother's end of life because she doesn't trust you because you disrespected your father.
Yep.
So I do think that's very important, even if you feel like what they're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people who think the way I used to, in being very stuck in their opinions and assuming that you're just smarter than everyone else. It hurts me to say that, but it's very true, both in me, my family, and a lot of people I know. Arrogance and ignorance are like best friends.
Yeah.
So if you do have somebody very receptive to the ideas of at least just talking about it, like you said, I do agree the best thing to do is just take it slow, just open up the conversation and just let them just kind of sit on it, you know?
Yeah.
They don't have to say yes right away.
Right, and even just expressing that you care and you want to make sure that their wishes are honored is huge. You know, because if you come in saying, like, I think you need to do this.
Right.
Nobody wants to hear that. Like, well, hold on. How do I know that's what I want to do? Like,
right, exactly.
You know, like, what do you want? Let's talk about it. You know, be open. Be open to the conversation.
Something else I also realized, too, is, you know, what if people have certain implants or replacements that also aren't compatible? You know, and it's like, even if they want to, they can't because they have a certain hip replacement that just will not go into the ground. Yeah. You know?
Well, sometimes those can be removed.
I was going to say, I'm sure they can be removed at certain points, but in other cases, I don't know, maybe it's a legal thing that they won't. Maybe the family says, no, you can't, you know, cut into her. Yeah. You know, or maybe, I don't know. Everything is circumstantial. I don't know. It is a case-by-case basis for everything in life, in my opinion. Right. But yeah, I think that's pretty much the best advice. If only there was an easier way to reach out and talk to doulas, but we don't have that kind of open conversation in society to begin with. Right. I'm willing to bet if I went to the mall right now and asked 100 people, do you even know what a doula is? I would get no accurate answer. Maybe one from that one nerd who just knows everything that's not me. Maybe. But no, it's just so, I think being able to be comfortable with the discussion of death is probably the most important element of this. Absolutely. I know a lot of people personally, if I talk about a dead family member, they'll get up and leave the room because they don't want to hear it. You know, straight up. Well, they have a lot of existential anxiety. Yeah. So once they start thinking about it, they get in a mental spot and they don't want to do anything. They're too scared. Sure. And I get that. You know, a lot of people do have that level of anxiety. I suffer from a little bit of it, but I've also learned to deal with it from passing of family members. So, you know, I wish there was a concrete answer as to how to engage in this better with everyone, but there is no silver bullet, you know. Yeah. I just think we need to be brave and be comfortable with, you know, a little more comfortable with death, I guess.
Yeah, I totally agree. I wish we all could be, but again, it's another one of those, you have to respect people and meet them where they are. A lot of people, I still have fears of death and dying. I accept it. I know I'm going to die, and I accept that, and it'll happen when it happens. But you know, is it gonna hurt? I don't know how I'm gonna die. None of us do, really. So
you know, I kind of like engaging in what I call, you know, little fantasy deaths. How do I really want to die? Yeah. And I've always left it like this. I want to die one of two ways. Okay. Either, you know, calm, peacefully when I'm like 100 or whatever and I've told all my stories, or with a mystery, with no one wondering what, or no one able to figure out what actually happened. As great as the last story as that would be, I would like my body to provide some benefit to the earth. So, yeah. You know?
I've always wanted to do something weird, like my last words be like something cryptic, so everybody spends the rest of their life trying to figure out what I meant by that, and it means nothing. Like, I don't know. Like,
just be like, never put the coin in front of the full moon. Never do it.
And then I die. And they're like,
what coin? Which coin? What was she talking about?
But I will encourage everybody to think about your death. The more you think about it, you take its power, and it is less scary. Yeah. So
I fully support that. I think the idea of death, accepting that as a part of, life's natural cycle is just as important.
Yeah.
It's not an enemy. It's a friend that's waiting for you.
Absolutely. It's just a transition.
Fantastic. Well, like I said, I would love to do this again. You are an amazing person to talk to. This has been a fun subject for me since this is something I've never thought I'd get to talk about before.
Yeah.
I hope we get to do this again. You
Absolutely.
have my email, so you can definitely reach out to me. Is there any socials or anything that you want people to kind of check you out at?
Yeah, I have a website. It's nikkithedeathdoula.com. You can check out there. The links to all my socials are there as well. And I have a podcast where I talk about grief and, demystifying all the processes of grief and grieving. So, people want to check that out. There's links to all that on my website. So,
absolutely. Do send me those links in the email so I can add them to it later.
I will, absolutely.
As this goes, I like to say Mama Tara loves you whenever I leave because she does.
Yes.
She cares about you. So with everyone, just remember, Mama Tara loves you and have a wonderful day.
Awesome. Yay.
Tongue-tied in the rain, soaked to my toes, got the chills to the bone. Cold stare through the haze, shrill in my voice and my lungs swell with pain. Call me out by my name, speak to me soft, help me gather my thoughts. Drown it out, plug the drain. Turn the record over, it can't be over. Ah, 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 ah. Write me when you get there to that better place where you can think straight. Send me love if you can. Manifest the best of your wildest fantasies. I hope you find what you need. Over the hills, sun sets in the trees, soak in the glorious rays. The sun will be out, beating down on your shoulders. Tie a rope round my waist as I venture into the dark. I'll be back by the time you finally know where you are. Tear my ego apart. We are all we are, and we are all but one. Send me up to the stars. The distance between means nothing to me. Or bury me in the sand after I've done for you all that I can. I'll tell you what I knew, but I've got no concept of what I'll know. Leave a breadcrumb trail for the wind to blow apart. I am lost, but I found